Welcome to the longest term board gaming podcast. This is episode 16, Spiel des Jahres. My name is Tyler.
Hello, this is Kevin.
This is Tyson.
In this episode, we're going to talk about the 2022 nominees for Spiel and Kennerspiel des Jahres. We'll then make our predictions on who we think is going to win, which is really a crapshoot. Then we'll get to our top 5 lists of our favorite Spiel winners and potentially nominees of all time.
You said this was going to be a crapshoot. In regards to who's going to potentially win based off of our predictions, I've never in the past actually predicted a right winner for this on my own.
Yeah, I always think I know which one's going to win, both Spiel and Kennerspiel, which is the connoisseur game of the year, which is more the heavier game, right? Yeah, I'm usually wrong when I make my predictions. So I don't know how valuable those predictions are going to be.
Probably not valuable at all, but we'll have fun talking about them, right?
We will.
Yeah.
What does it actually mean for a game to win Spiel des Jahres?
So from like a publisher standpoint, this is a big deal because essentially what happens is you've guaranteed yourself 100,000 copy print run essentially of the game. You've already printed the game. It's already been very successful up to this point. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a Spiel nominee.
There's a few out there that are like, "Whoa, how did that make the list?"
But I think they.
But I get what you're
They've
saying.
been successful somewhere.
Yeah,
right.
Maybe not in the U.S. market where we've got access to all of them, but they've been successful to some degree already.
Right.
But now they become a nominee. You're getting them all over the place. Trying to find them is hard. Like I went and I tried to find a couple of these that I hadn't played yet to purchase, and I had a hard time finding them. Scout, for example, was really hard. I did get a copy of that, but then other people after we played it tried to get a copy, and it was all sold out. So,
it's a big deal whether you're the winner, whether you're a nominee. It's so much advertising for these games.
Yeah, and even if you're just a nominee, I think you're guaranteeing yourself tens of thousands of sales.
Yeah, well, I know for me, like I probably wouldn't have taken a look at Scout at all if it wasn't on the nominee list.
No, absolutely.
Right? It would have flown completely under my radar. And
then
I'm sure I'm not alone in that. A lot of people see it on that nominee list. They're like, well, it's got to be a good game. I'm going to check it out.
Totally agree. And then you slap that logo, the Spiel Award logo on a box.
Which they have to pay extra for to put it on there.
The publishers do. But
they're probably getting that money back.
It's worth the investment.
Right?
Because they end up selling a lot because of that. So I think ultimately, yeah, it's a big deal in regards to getting these games more out there. And the fact that most of these in the Spiel category are for hobby gamers, more on the gateway side of games, I think it's a great opportunity to expose the hobby to a larger market of people who would otherwise not see these kinds of games.
Yeah, and you look at the Connoisseur Award that's supposed to be the gamer's game type of category. Those are a lot of times more gateway games as well. So
yes.
Both categories kind of skew towards families and getting people into the hobby. You know, so I think it's a great thing for exposure to games in general.
Yeah, definitely. So we actually, I think we've played 5 of the 6 nominees, and we're going to go through the Spiel nominees first. We'll talk about each one of those, and then we'll talk about the 3 Kennerspiel nominees, and then we'll do our predictions, and then we'll go from there. Kevin, do you want to start with Cascadia?
I do. So Cascadia, we've talked about this one before. It is set in the Pacific Northwest. It is a tile laying game where you are selecting different tiles and different tokens, and you're trying to meet end game conditions that vary every game. So to start off the game, you select 5 different animals, and those animals will have different criteria that get them points at the end of the game. And throughout the game, you're going to try to place tiles and place tokens to meet those end game scoring conditions. So the way the game works is you have 4 tiles in front of you. You have a starting tile that everybody starts with. So that's a little bit different. You'll have 4 tiles that are in front of you and a token that's associated with each one of those tiles. On your turn, you'll select one combination of a tile and a token, and you'll put that token that tile next to an existing tile on your board. And that tile will have from 1 to 3 different animals on it and a certain terrain type. So you'll place that tile next to an existing tile, and then you'll take the token and you'll put it on top of an animal that is already in front of you on a tile. It doesn't have to be on the tile you selected. It can be on one that you've placed previously. Then you replace that combination of tile and token, and it goes to the next person. You do this until all of the tiles have been placed, and then you do endgame scoring. So the way that you score is, like I mentioned before, if you have met the criteria for one of those animal cards, bears, for example, if it says you need 2 bears together and you have 2 bears together on tokens on your tiles, then you'll get a certain amount of points. There are hawks, there are foxes, there are elk, and they all have different things that they need to score for based on how you've laid these tokens out on your board. There's also, if you have it's called a corridor, if you have the largest corridor of a terrain type, you get bonus points. If you have second largest, I think you get bonus points as well. So you're trying to balance placing tiles to get terrain types and then placing tokens to meet the end game scoring objectives, which at times can contradict each other. So there's decisions to be made there that are interesting throughout the game. You add all this up at the end, and whoever has the most points wins. So that's kind of a brief rundown of Cascadia. I picked this one up over the holidays, and like I said, we've talked about it before on the podcast. It's a light game, but it's one of those games that's easy to pick up, but I think has some interesting decisions to make, and it's a lot of fun. It's been a hit with me and my family for sure.
It's really pretty. It's got that art by Beth Sobel, and man, it makes me want to go camping.
Yeah, all of her art in any game she ever does gives you kind of that vibe of like that homey kind of pure nature aesthetic, right? And this is no exception to it. It really does have that very outdoorsy, I want to be outside kind of a feel to it. One thing that I really like about this game is the fact that each animal can have a different scoring condition from game to game. So it doesn't ever really feel like it gets stale because you can have a different combination of what comes out. And I don't remember the exact number of like combinations that can come out of that, but like you have a lot of possibilities of how this game is going to play and how the different combinations are going to interact, that it makes it so that you know the base rules, but each time you're playing, it's going to be a new experience.
Yeah. I think there's 3 separate scoring cards per animal, 5 different animals. So there's a lot of variability out of the box. And this is a game that's easily expandable. I can't imagine this isn't going to get expansions where you just add different scoring objectives for each animal, and that's going to completely switch up the game. Add more tiles.
New tiles, new terrain.
Yeah, you can add a new animal, right? Yeah, there's just a ton of ways to expand this game that I think we're going to see that,
So that the first time I played it, when that concept of having different scoring rules for each animal that could come up in each different game, that reminded me a lot of Tiny Towns. That was one of the first things that I thought when Kevin was teaching the rules, which made me laugh because Kevin, that's not your favorite game.
No, that's an understatement.
But that's what I immediately thought of was the different building types and how they each have many different potential scoring rules associated with them from game to game.
Yeah, and I immediately thought of Kingdom Builder. If you guys have played that one. Yeah, there's you have 3 scoring objectives in that game, and they vary from game to game, and it completely changes how you play based on those scoring objectives.
Kingdom Builder a Spiel nominee or winner? It
actually was a winner. So Donald X. Vaccarino is the designer of Dominion. This was his follow-up game to Dominion, Kingdom Builder, and it won the Spiel as well.
Oh, wow.
So he had a pretty good run there for a few years.
So that's interesting, though, because over the years, like, that's what I thought of the Spiel de Jahres, was that it was more of this way of Kingdom Builder style game, Cascadia. But when you look to some of these other nominees that we have of this year, I feel like Cascadia almost feels like it belongs in the Kennerspiel category more so than the other ones, based off of the two we have, Scout and Top 10, as the other potential ones.
I feel like from year to year, it seems like they're getting lighter and lighter, the nominees.
I agree.
Almost like
Llama was a nominee, and that's
Just
almost
one.
an activity, almost,
Yep.
instead of a game. But yeah, Just One's another one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, Cascadia, great game. I really enjoy it. But so the next one is Scout, right? And I'll talk a little bit about Scout here. Scout is a ladder climbing game.
Whoa, stop. Ladder climbing, you say?
I love Monster Crunch, anyone?
Oh my gosh.
So
Yeah, this is one of my favorite genres. Continue.
we
Continue.
know
Are you
ladder
serious?
climbing on this podcast, right?
I enjoy ladder climbing games. They're good.
For those who do not understand what ladder climbing games are, it's essentially somebody plays a value of cards down, and the player that comes next to them has to beat that value, essentially. So that's kind of what we're doing with Scout. Scout is, as I said, a ladder climbing game. Every card in Scout has 2 potential values on it. And those values are dependent upon how you're holding the cards in your hand. If you're orienting it one way, it's going to have a value in the top left corner. If you flip it upside down, it's going to have another value. When you deal out the games at the start of this game, everybody gets an equal number of cards from the deck. And then that'll vary depending on player count. But then once everybody has cards, they take them into their hand. At that point, no player is allowed to rearrange their cards or turn them all or change the orientation of any individual card.
Bonanza. Same mechanic in Bonanza.
Right. Like, exactly. Bonanza, you have the cards. You have to keep them the way they are. The one difference, though, is that in Scout, once you first get your hand of cards, you have the option to say, I can have it oriented the way that I'm holding it currently, or I can completely flip it 180 degrees, my whole hand, and I can orient it the other way. The reason you would want to do that is because in the game, you're trying to play sets and runs. So a set of cards, say you have 2 3s, that would be a set. A run is 1, 2, 3. Or any value, it could be descending or ascending. So in the game, you're trying to play these cards. If I play a run and I have 3 cards and it's 5, 6, 7, but I play a set that also has 3 cards, 2, 2, 2, a set will always beat a run in this game. So you're trying to play cards and make sure that you have cards arranged in your hand in a way that you can continually play higher than your opponents. And the real trick, the real interesting part about the game, I think, is that you're trying to play cards out of your hand because you can play cards from wherever in your hand as long as they're already in a set or a run, or you can play an individual card if you're able to. And when you play those, they're going to rearrange your hand, sort of, because you're going to have to fill in the gap and it's going to put things closer together. So it makes these interesting decisions of, I have a 5 and then I have 2 2s, but after those 2 2s, I have a 6, 7, 8. So I want to get rid of these 2 2s in my hand. So now I have a 5, 6, 7, 8 in my hand, which allows me to play a really powerful combo that's harder to beat. Every time that I cannot play a card, I have to take a card that is already in play. So whoever last played and has the current highest value, I have to take one of the cards on the far left or the far right of their cards. And then at that point, I can choose to take that card into my hand and put it upside down or right side up and place it anywhere in my hand to make combos. When I take a card from the table, I give a point to the players that still has their hand laid down on the table. If at any point the turn comes all the way back to the player who has the highest value and nobody was able to beat their hand, the game ends. And then you collect a certain amount of points for that, and the player with the most points win. So this game it's really quick. It's really short. I've played it a number of times. The common issue I have seen with this game is that people don't understand very easily the way the cards work and the values, because you have a big value or a larger number in the left-hand corner and then a smaller number. And it's hard to kind of associate, which value am I playing sometimes?
Just the orientation of the card. So if you're playing around a table and you play a card in front of you, it's oriented correctly for you. But for the person across from you, it may be a little unclear as to what card is being played. I mean, you pick up on that as you play, obviously, and you'll get better at that. But the first time you played, maybe that orientation thing may throw some people off.
Yeah.
Right?
So
the cards were pretty flimsy too.
They were. Are you going to talk about sleeving? Is that where you're going with this?
No. I got my word in on sleeving last episode.
Yeah, the production. I mean, I think
I felt like
the price point probably is fine for the production, right?
It's a very small, lightweight game that is very accessible. Like you can stick it in your pocket almost and then bring it, which is really cool about it. And in fact, I had
use it to start a fire if you're.
You could, but that's not where I was going.
Oh. You want to burn this game, huh?
It wasn't my favorite. It was kind of boring.
I took this game on an airplane, and I took a really cheap flight. I flew Frontier, which is
so you were sitting on the person's lap next to you,
basically, and they charge you for everything. So you can't bring bags very large, and if they're even an inch over what their dimensions allow, they make you pay for them. So I brought a very small bag because I was only going overnight, and I was able to fit this in my bag to bring, and I played it with my family while I was visiting them. And it lent itself to accidental cheating. Because my brother didn't understand that, hey, I couldn't arrange every card in my hand at first, and he ended up getting these really big combos that were great. And
he gets rid of his whole hand at once.
Yeah, exactly.
Whoa, he's got a set of 6.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
but it lent itself to that kind of experience. So it felt like it should have been a very lightweight game that is accessible to anybody, but there was some bumps to it. But once we got going, everybody understood it, and it was a lot of fun. Everybody liked it. In fact, a couple of people at that table were like, okay, we're going to go buy it.
Wow, really?
They went to go purchase it.
I'm sorry.
I'm not as lukewarm on it as Tyler is. I think it's a decent game. It's by far not my favorite game.
I think there's a good game. Definitely the equivalent nominee to Llama. You're trying to play your cards in a way that you then create future combos in your hand that you can play on later turns, right? It wasn't very exciting for me. I felt like the game was pretty boring even at 20 minutes. Maybe it was because we were only playing 3 players. I've heard it's kind of terrible at 2-player.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I haven't played it at 2-player. But now it does have almost the equivalent to the milk token in Monster Punch, which adds another decision. I actually thought that was actually a really cool decision that one does.
I think
maybe it's just fair to say that ladder games are not my thing. I just didn't feel like it ever created really any exciting moments. Oh, I played a set of 2. Okay. Kevin played a set of 3. Whoa.
Well, I think manipulating your hand, the decision of whether or not to flip over your cards to the other side, that's something you got to be aware of. Like I said, it's not my favorite game, but I think there's enough there that it's interesting, and I think my family would love it.
I would agree, and I think most like as a family game, it's a lot of fun, and it was easy to get into. Yes, there was a little confusion playing with my family, but once we got past that, they really enjoyed it. And my niece, who is 12 years old, who I was playing with, she ended up pulling off a combo where she had waited the whole game and like had set her hand up. She hadn't been playing very much, and I was like, oh, she's gonna lose here. And she had like a ton of cards still in her hand. But then she played a 5-card combo because she had set it up just perfectly, and nobody could beat her. And she ended up winning that round and taking it for all it was.
So that's an exciting move.
And it was an exciting move.
I mean, that's cool. I think the night that we played, did we play it 2 or 3 times? Or
I think we played it twice.
We played it twice. I don't think there was a card combo bigger than 3 that was played. And it just was like,
seems like we talk a lot about Llama. But like the first time I played that, I'm like, this is the stupidest game I've ever played. But as I played it more, there's slight nuances to that game. Very slight, that when you pick up on it, you're like, okay, there's a game here. And I think if I play my strategy better than somebody else, I can maybe win more often than not. And I wonder if that's the way it is with Scout. The more you play it, the more you see slight little nuances in the game, how you can play it better, and it becomes a more strategic game. I'd be interested to see if that's how this one pans out.
I kind of think Llama has a little bit more lightheartedness to it, though, whereas Scout is a little bit thinkier.
I agree.
I would agree with
without the payoff. For me personally, I'm not saying it's a bad game. It just wasn't for me, and maybe ladder games just aren't my thing.
No, and I think, if we're comparing Llama and Scout, Llama is a little bit more lighthearted, silly fun, which is good. Scout becomes on the other side of that fence, being a little bit more strategic, albeit not a ton more, but like it does have those nuanced decision points that Kevin was mentioning that I think absolutely makes the game. The more you play it, the more I've played it, because I've played it the 2 or 3 times that all 3 of us played it, but then with my family, we played 4 or 5 games of it, and everybody was really trying to see how they could make it. And there was a lot more decisions and understanding of, oh, if I do this, or if I wait to use my show and scout token until this point, it'll really make a bigger impact.
Well,
go ahead.
Well, if Tyler doesn't like Monster Crunch, a modern classic,
which has a way better theme than this does,
right? Then he clearly does not like ladder climbing games. Yeah. So clearly,
that is one thing that I will give you, Tyler, absolutely hands down. This game has the theme of you're recruiting circus performers for your circus, and every card has a name on it. Yeah. Every card has like an occupation, and it's superfluous. Like there is no reason to have it. It just distracts you from the rest of what actually is going on the card.
Did you even notice the first time? I didn't even notice that there were names on the card and like little flavor things.
I did because my wife's name was on one of my cards in my hand, and I was like, "Oh, hey, what is that?"
I'm recruiting people for my circus. No, you're not. You're just playing cards, right?
No, I'm sure there's a good game there. I'd be okay if I never played it again.
Hey, everybody's got a different opinion.
I know what your nominee is going to be for Spiel. It's got to be Scout. But before we cast those votes, you got to tell us about top 10.
Yeah, top 10. So this is the one game that none of us have played because it's not available in English. I believe it's available in German and French. This top 10 game is designed by Aurélien Picolet. I apologize for the pronunciation there. But basically, this is a cooperative party-style game. And really, we talked about Scout being the equivalent of Llama. Top 10, to me, is kind of the equivalent of a Just One nomination. So this party game, it's cooperative, like I said, and you are trying to survive 5 rounds. So you have the same number of tokens that there are players, and they all start out on a unicorn side. When it's your turn, you draw a card, and it has 2 prompts on it, and you choose one, and you read it aloud to each player. So one of them might be like, find a dog's name from boring to one that's really scary, okay? And in the meantime, you also deal out a card to each player that has a number on it, 1 through 10. It's random and it's hidden. So Tyson might get the 3, I might get the 5, Kevin might get the 10. So based on that and the example I gave, depending on the prompt, they might be different, but the intensity of the answer depends on the number from 1 to 10. So if you have a 1, you're giving a really weak answer. A 10, you're giving the most intense, best answer possible for whatever the prompt is that the player chooses whose turn it is. So there's 5 rounds. the person whose turn it is also takes a number card, so they know what number they have. And then once the answers are given by each player, the players whose turn it is picks which card to flip over first, which number card. Okay, so Tyson gave Fido as his answer for the dog. I'm going to pick Tyson first. He flips it over. It's a 3. I know I have a 5. I'm going to flip mine over. Kevin's was Armageddon.
Scary.
Dog name.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
That's my next dog.
Yeah. So I know that he's got a higher number. I'm going to pick him last. Well, as long as they're in ascending order, we don't lose any of our unicorn tokens. However, if any one of them is out of order, for each one that's out of order from the previous card that is chosen, you lose a unicorn, and you actually flip it over, and on the backside of the unicorn is turd.
Assuming it's unicorn poop.
Yep. So you're trying to reach the end of the game, the end of 5 rounds, and survive with some unicorns to win. If you get all poop at any point, then you lose, and your group's terrible at top 10.
I could see how this could be really funny, like getting the right group.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that it's one of those games where, you give people will give their answers, flip them over. Whoever's guessing is going to guess wrong. And then there's going to be lots of argument and lively discussion that ensues. Why
would you?
Yeah.
Meryl Streep is a terrifying dog name.
Yeah, right. It sounds very group dependent, but it sounds like it could be a lot of fun. When I was researching this game, obviously I haven't played it, but it made me think of The Mind, right? Where you're trying to be on the same page with the entire group, and the whole flipping over of cards and everything. And then that excitement that you get when you do it correctly has got to be kind of cool, right? So that's what it made me think of initially anyway, without having played it, obviously.
Yeah, I totally forgot for a while there that it was a cooperative game, and I was thinking, like when you were describing it, I was like, this has like an apples to apples Cards Against Humanity kind of vibe to it, where the person who gives the best answer is going to be it. But then that cooperative element adds that interesting dynamic of, can we all be in sync in this game? Like the crew, like the mind, right? And I could see that being really engaging.
Well, and I could see it too as, like I said, we haven't played this, unfortunately, but I could see when you're getting into like that last round or the second to last round, similar to the mind, when you're putting numbers down and it's everybody's on the edge of their seat. I could see this game also creating those moments when you're on your last unicorn. It's the last round and you got a choice between 2 cards to flip over, and you pick the right one or you pick the wrong one. Like sometimes those are the best type of party games, or the cooperative ones. And
so who cares if you win or lose? It's a party game, and you're having fun, right?
Right. And aside from the card prompts, I don't think that there isn't any way or reason that you couldn't create this game on your own. You could really write down some prompts and go play this at a family gathering pretty easily.
Yeah, though you probably got to have somebody who's clever enough to write the prompts, because you could have some real dull prompts, I could imagine. But
yeah,
the one thing that, as I was reading about this one, that gives me a little bit of pause is it seems like there's some cards that require actions or acting out certain things, right? And
I did see that too. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm not a huge fan of that. That is very group dependent. So if you have a group that likes that, then it'll probably go over really well. But that's not me. Yeah, I usually don't like to act out things.
As long as it's not singing.
Pizza.
Well, I'm not acting out. Oh well,
cat,
you have actions that you're doing in that, but that doesn't require me be.
It
doesn't require me to be creative and come up with something on the spot, which I'm not great at that. So that's something. Haven't played the game. I don't know for sure if it's in there, but from my research, it seems like maybe that's part of it, or it could be part of it,
Yeah, based on what I've read and found on this game, when it is available in English, I'll definitely be getting a copy of it.
So I think that leads us into, that's all 3 nominees, right? So do we want to go through and cast our votes on what we think is going to win the spiel for these ones?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Yep.
I have a good feeling that we might all pick the same game for this one.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, my question is, are we voting on the one we think is going to win or the one that we want to win?
Oh, I think we vote on
I think we could say both if it's different.
Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
Oh. So I think Cascadia is the best game amongst these. Obviously, I haven't played top 10, but I don't think it competes with Cascadia. And so it's kind of weird to me that these 3 games are like the ones that are nominated for this category because they don't feel like equivalent games.
Yeah.
They're vastly different weighted games. Right?
Yeah.
But the way that the Spiel Awards have been going, I actually am going to put my vote on Scout because I think it's a more approachable game. I think Cascadia is less approachable for the average, maybe not hobby gamer, right? Just somebody, a family style game. It's more approachable. I think Scout has the bigger potential to reach more people and resonate with more people than Cascadia. So my vote is on Scout, even though I'd want Cascadia.
So I have similar thoughts. I really feel like Cascadia is out of place here. It feels like it should be in the Kennerspiel category with how they've been going. To me, and we haven't played top 10, by far Cascadia is the better game. And I think it should win. I'm going with Cascadia. Honestly, I would rather have seen something like 10 by AEG with these other 2 games. I don't think Cascadia belongs in this group. But it is there and it's by far the best game. I think it's going to win.
Yeah, I have similar feelings. I think Cascadia, I have more fun playing that than Scout. I think it's a deeper game. It's a better game in my opinion. Don't have a whole lot of opinions about top 10. I'm going to go out on a limb here. Just hearing the description of top 10, and it does sound like a pretty awesome party game that's going to resonate with a lot of people. I'm going to go with top 10.
Awesome.
So at least one of us is going to be right.
One of us is going to be right?
I almost went that way.
Yeah.
I didn't want to pick Scout.
Yeah. I know. I think top 10 could do it. And it's always a game that I don't think is going to win that wins. Right. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if top 10 pulled it out. So.
Yeah. That's why I said it was a crapshoot at the beginning. Like
it is. You never know.
There are some locked in games where you're like, there's no way that's not going to win. And then it doesn't win.
I'm just glad that we have a winner at this table here. Somebody here is going to actually be right this year.
What do we get if we win? I don't know.
A copy of Scout.
I'll take
Yoink.
it.
That's my copy.
Tyson's copy?
If I win, I'll give it to you.
Tyson's
my copy?
Yeah. All right, cool. Same with me.
The same is not true with our Kennerspiel games.
Right.
If Dune Imperium wins, I'm not giving away my copy of Dune Imperium.
Whoa.
Okay.
There's no equivalency here, huh?
All right.
Well, I mean, one's a throwaway game and one's a work of art.
Throwaway.
Well, let's get into those games, huh?
Yeah, let's start talking about those.
Yeah,
let's start.
Why don't
talking
you
about
start
those.
with Dune Imperium because you're so loving of it? Let's hear your
Loving
thoughts.
of it. Okay. That's okay.
Tell us about your love.
I'll tell you about my love for Arrakis. So there are any number of games that are around this IP, around Arrakis. This is Dune Imperium. It came out in 2020. It's currently ranked 16th overall on the BGG Top 100.
What, 16?
16.
Oh my gosh.
Which is like 9 games behind Arc Nova at this point,
right.
Which is still ridiculous to me, but whatever. I'm just throwing out all kinds of negativity tonight. Dune Imperium. So this is a deck builder worker placement game. It is one of my favorite games of the last couple of years that has come out. Not only is it a deck builder, which we all love deck builders. It was designed by Paul Denon, who also designed another amazing game called Clank. But Dune Imperium, one of the things I love about this game, they're multi-use cards. You can use the card to place your worker on specific locations. You can use your card to and gain the benefit of that card, or you can save that card to the end of the round to contribute towards buying new cards. You're playing as one of the houses of the Landsrod, and you have your house has unique abilities. Whoever has the most points once somebody gets to 10 points wins. There's a battle conflict at the end of each round where further amazing rewards can be gained. Limited resources. It's a tight game. It's a little bit unforgiving. I love just about everything about this game. There are different tracks that you can go up on. One's Bene Gesserit, one's the Fremen track, and there's a couple other tracks. And as you go up on those tracks, you gain rewards, but you gain favor with that faction, and you get victory points that put you up on the point track. However, if someone passes you up, you can lose those points, which makes for some really interesting decisions, I think. I love this game. Dune Imperium came out a couple years ago. This is absolutely an amazing game. I haven't done my top 10 of all time lately, but this one is definitely up there close if it's not in my top 10.
Yeah, it's a good game. I like it. I have had a few bad plays of it. We at our Cabin Con, we talked about Cabin Con. We had an episode about it. That play was brutal.
It was a long play.
It was long. It just wasn't that interesting. And I've had a few of those plays, which have kind of soured me a little bit on the game. We've gone back and forth about Dune Imperium and Lost Ruins of Arnak quite a bit, and we won't go into that. If you want to hear more about that, go back to
episode 1.
Episode 1, where we go into depth about why Lost Ruins of Arnak is a superior game. Isn't that right, Tyler?
If that's what you're going with.
No, but I think the theme, if you're really into the theme, I think that probably adds a little bit to your enjoyment of the game. I'm not really into the theme. I enjoyed the new movie, but it doesn't just jazz me up a ton. I think it does a lot of things right, but I'm not quite as high on it as Tyler is.
See, and I don't have as good of an opinion on this game as either of you, because I've still only played this game once. And I'd love to play it more. The play I had of it, I really enjoyed. I wanted to explore more. I think it does a lot of really interesting things. At the time, I had only played Arnak once and Dune Imperium once. And I remember thinking when I had first played that, I preferred Dune over that. But I've played a ton since then. Of Arnak, and I love that. But again, we're not going into that. Dune Imperium, I think, deserves the nod of Spiel nominee, Kennerspiel nominee, right? Like, I think it's a worthy game for the nomination.
Yep, I agree with that.
And I think that can be said of all the games that we're going to be talking about here. And so it'll be interesting to see how this one unfolds. I'd love to play this one more. I still haven't gotten to play it as much as I'd like.
I wish it came to BGA. I mean, I think
awesome,
because I think the more I play the game, I think the more I would like the game. And having it on BGA or another digital platform would be amazing. So
the only other thing I was going to say, and this isn't really consideration for the Kennerspiel, but I love the Rise of Ix expansion. But yeah, no, Dune Imperium, it's an amazing game. You know, one thing that Dune doesn't have is any forests, because Arrakis is a desert sand planet full of spice and bounty, but no forests.
I know a game that does have forests.
In fact, a very vibrant forest.
A very, very vibrant forest.
With birds?
Birds, I think.
Birds?
I'd have to look at the pictures a little bit closer. I'm going to say yes to birds, but we'll follow up on that. So it is the next nominee for the Kennerspiel des Jahres, and that is Living Forest. And I'm going to read just a little snippet to set the scene of the theme from Board Game Geek. So it says, in Living Forest, you play as a nature spirit who will try to save the forest and its sacred tree from the flames of Onibi. But you are not alone in your mission, as the animal guardians have come together to lend a hand around the circle of spirits where you progress. Each turn, they bring you valuable elements. So try to combine your team of animal guardians as best as possible to carry out your actions, but be careful. Some of them are lonely and do not like to be mixed with others. I mean, that sounds pretty exciting. Right?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
Riveting.
It is very vibrant.
It is very vibrant. And, as I'm playing this game, it reminded me of a video game that I've played in the past, and that's Ori. Have you guys played Ori and the Will-o'-the-Wisps or Ori and the Blind Forest?
Is it a
Sounds
little
very
like
familiar.
ragdoll that runs around doing stuff?
Yeah. It's a platformer. I played it a few years ago, actually, both these video games, and it has the same aesthetic and the same feel.
I think
I
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I love those games. If you're into platformers, it's worth checking out. We won't go into that, but it just kind of gives me the same feel as this one with the eyes of the creatures and everything. And anyway, that's another podcast, I guess. But in this game, the way it works is you are building your guardian animals. So there's a press your luck element to this game. So you have a deck of cards, and you're flipping over these cards, trying not to get the symbols that mean it's the animals that like to be alone, right? They're these little dark symbols. As soon as you flip over 3 of those symbols, you have to stop, and you get 1 action for that round. If you stop before you get those 3 symbols, then you get 2 actions for the round instead of just 1. So there's a little bit of a press your luck element. There's ways to mitigate bad draws with these X tokens that you can get later in the game or earlier in the game if you're using them. But that's the main mechanic to start the game, to start the round. So after you've done that, if you've either gotten those 3 or you've stopped, then you have a certain number of resources that you can use on your turn for your 1 or 2 actions. There's these sun resources where you can buy additional cards for your deck. The card that you buy goes on top of your deck, and you draw that in your next turn. You can extinguish fires. So you're going to get these water symbols, and you can use the water symbols that you get to extinguish fires around, I think it's the sacred tree. You don't want it to get burned down, right?
Well, and every time that you're use the sun symbol to get new cards, you're essentially burning the forest, right? Like,
yes,
you're adding fire to the game,
right?
That's how the fire gets in the sacred circle or whatever it's called.
Exactly. So you're trying to extinguish these fires. Another thing you can do is you can buy trees. So you have these little branch symbols that you get as you're drawing your cards. You get a certain amount of those. There's a number of these trees that you can buy, and there's a cost associated with those. So you're buying trees that cost anywhere from 3 to 12 or something like that. When you buy these trees, they give you a future benefit of a resource, and they also go on a board that you're trying to line up these trees to give you additional benefits. So you can get more suns to spend, or you can get more water, or you can get these flowers that are a way that you can win the game. So you take your actions, and then it goes to the next person in turn order. They take their actions. The way that you win the game is you either collect 12 unique trees, you extinguish 12 fires, or you collect 12 of these flower symbols on 1 turn. Whoever does that first wins. There's tiebreakers that if somebody gets there at the same time, then there's tiebreakers. There's this board that you're moving around that if you pass somebody, you can take one of their tokens that will give you a benefit.
Well, and it cancels out their end game condition for that particular one.
Right. Yep. So it's setting them back a little bit. It's getting you ahead a little bit. There's combos that you can get in this game, which are a lot of fun. I think it's a great game. I've played it on BGA, I think 5 or 6 times at this point. We don't have the physical copy, but I've enjoyed every play that I've had. And initially we thought maybe there's a dominant strategy of extinguishing fires, but I've seen the game won now with all 3 different victory conditions. And I think, focusing on any one of those is a viable strategy, at least from what I've seen.
Well, and there's ways to counter it, because at first I was thinking the same thing as you, Kevin. I was thinking fire is always going to be the way, because people are going to want to get cards to add to their deck to be able to do more things. And so there's always going to be fire. But then I realized that my starting deck is pretty decent. Like, it's not like other like deck builder style games where you want to get rid of all of your starting cards, this game, your starting hand is pretty decent. And I think in the last game we played, I think I may have bought one card the entire game, which meant that since I didn't buy cards, I wasn't putting fire into the thing.
Right.
And so it allowed me to limit the amount of fire that other people could extinguish, slowing that victory condition. The same could be said for like planting trees. There are ways to mitigate somebody winning from planting trees because you can buy the trees that they would be able to afford that round so that they can't buy anything. And so it makes this really interesting dynamic. And I too have played it 5 or 6 times and enjoyed it a lot every single time we played. I think one of the first things playing it that I thought was so fascinating was everybody has the same end 3 win conditions, but by moving along that spirit circle board, you can hop over somebody, leapfrog them, and grab one of their end game conditions so that if they are close to winning the game with that one, you've prevented them from being able to win that until they can steal it back from you, which I think is a fun way to kind of mitigate that winner strategy as well.
And you also get a free action potentially based on where you end. So you could end up on a leaf, which gives you a tree. You could steal a tree from somebody else. And then for your second action, you can go buy another tree. So that could be like a 3-tree swing, and it could get you the victory or get you closer to the victory type of thing. So those kind of moves and things that you can pull off and that the game lends itself to those types of things is really interesting and really fun, I thought.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. And the interesting thing about this game to me is that there are so many different mechanics at play. You've got deck building, set collection, you've got push your luck, you've got card management, and you've got all these other things going on that you're trying to manage, but they all cohesively go together in a way that is intuitive and really easy to understand for most players just out the gate. It doesn't require a whole lot of teaching or understanding of the game in depth, that you can really get this game going in a fairly quick amount of time.
Yeah, and it kind of straddles that line between introductory type of game to middleweight game. And I think it's going to be accessible to a lot of people. And I really think it's going to be one that appeals to a lot. So it's a good one for sure. That's Living Forest, another Spiel nominee.
It looks really fun. I did look up the weight of it just because I'm curious about what the weight of these games are for the Kennerspiel, and it was like 2.2 something, whereas Dune Imperium's like a 3 out of 5. And I know that the BGG complexity rating is not the end-all be-all, but it's a pretty good indicator of how complex a game. So it's interesting to me that Living Forests, I mean, do you almost feel like it could fit into that Spiel category versus, I mean, does it belong in the Kennerspiel?
I think it belongs in the Kennerspiel, but I think Cascadia belongs in Kennerspiel as well. Like, I think it's closer in weight to Cascadia than I do to Dune Imperium.
Yeah. Like I said, it straddles that line between gateway game and like a middleweight game, right? So I would have no problems introducing this to a new person to the hobby, and I don't think they would struggle too much with it. So yeah.
Well, and similar to Living Forest, Cryptid, the other nominee for Kennerspiel, which came out in 2018, actually. I guess it just barely made it to Germany last year. It has almost the exact same weight as Living Forest at 2.23. So,
yeah, and that's an interesting thought as well, because like you said, it came out in 2018. Cryptid is a deduction game, and it's interesting because it does have that similar weight that you can be accessible to anybody. But it's a game in which you are taking on the role of a cryptozoologist, and your goal is to try and find the cryptid. Every game, the cryptid could be different, and it's kind of really abstract because you don't know actually which cryptid you're looking for, and it never tells you. But you could be looking for Chupacabra, you could be looking for Loch Ness, or you could be looking for Bigfoot, or a variety of other mythological creatures. But your goal is you are working sort of together with everybody because you're trying to figure out where the cryptid is, but not give away too much information to the other players. So in a turn, what you're essentially doing is you can either ask a question to the group or you can search. The reason why you can ask a question to the group is that everybody starts off with a clue in this game that they know something that is concrete about this game. Or something that is concrete about the cryptid, what kind of habitat they live in. On the board, you have a bunch of different terrain. You've got water, mountain, forest, swamp, and desert. You've got different animal territories. So you've got bear territories and cougar territories. And then you've got some landmarks like the Standing Stone and an abandoned shack. And these things will move around from game to game. It's all modular. So when you're asking your questions on a turn, you're asking the group, or a specific person rather, could the cryptid live in this location as you point at a specific spot on the board? And a player can answer in the affirmative or answer in basically, I don't know. I cannot confirm that it was there, and I cannot deny it. And so they put pieces on the board, either a square or like a disc. And as you're putting stuff on the board becomes more and more populated with stuff, which is essentially clues of what is going on and where the cryptid is going to be located. So at some point, it feels a little bit like Clue, in that somebody at some point has to make a decision and say, it was Professor Plum in the conservatory with the candlestick. You're essentially doing that type of action here and saying, I'm going to search a location and I'm going to guess that the cryptid is here. If nobody is able to disprove that, then you've located the one spot on the map where the cryptid could be, and you win. The thing that makes this game really interesting and unique to me is that the game comes with 54 cards, and these 54 cards have basically mathed out how you can puzzle together all the pieces in a specific way that there is one spot that will result in where the cryptid is located. So this is a very cleverly designed game that I admire for its design alone. And the fact that there are 54 different ones, and on every card you have different player counts. So if you're playing, you can play the same card like 3 or 4 times, because you can play it at 3, 4, or 5 players, and you're going to get a different experience per card. There is a lot to go into this game that you will never repeat the same location or the same clue over and over again. So there's a lot of interesting parts about this. I like this game a lot. I bought it back in like 2019, maybe 2020, and started playing this a little bit, and I've enjoyed it every single time I've played it. Though I will say that this game may not be for everybody just because of the type of game it is. It is a deduction game that is very group dependent, I think. I know Kevin's played this game with me a little bit, and I think that he had one of those kind of group dynamic, maybe deduction. This game is not his style, but
I appreciate the design. I think it's a very well designed game. I just happen to hate it. It's just not my type of game, right? I'm terrible at it. That's not why I don't like it. It's just not fun for me. The playing the game. So
how does it compare to Search for Planet X? Which one do you like more? Which one is it pretty comparable?
Cryptid is more accessible. It's easier to get into. But I like Search for Planet X better. And the app in Search for Planet X is a great way to facilitate the changes and all those clues. The cards in Cryptid are how you handle that in this game and how you vary up the setups and the things. But the app in Search for Planet X handles that for that game. Of the two, I prefer Search for Planet X. But I think Cryptid falls in the Kennerspiel nominee category because it compares in weight to some of these other games that we're talking about, Dune Imperium and Living Forest. And so I think it is a more approachable game than Search for Planet X.
Should we go over our winners?
Let's do it.
Yeah, I'll go first. Okay, so I think Dune Imperium, while it's a great game, I don't know if the theme is going to resonate with everybody. I don't know if that's a factor in it winning or not. But I'm going to say no to that one. Cryptid, I've already explained how I feel about that game. I think it's a very well designed game. I just don't happen to like it a whole lot. It could win. Who knows? Like we said, it's a crapshoot. I'm going to go with Living Forest as the winner of the Kennerspiel, the Jahres. I think it's a very accessible game. I think it's going to appeal to a lot of people. I think the theme is great. It, like you mentioned, Tyson, it's a mishmash of a lot of different mechanics that seem to work really well together. So that's going to be my pick for the winner of the Kennerspiel.
Yeah, I'll go next. So I'm going to follow suit in a lot of same ways as Kevin just said. I think Dune Imperium is a phenomenal game. I need to play it more personally. I can see why it was nominated for the Kennerspiel. And I think it deserves that nomination. For me, I think that it is perhaps less accessible to potentially the audience that this category caters to. I think it's a little heavier in complexity than maybe what other winners of this category have done before. So I would tend to think
The Crew has won before, which to me should be a spiel.
That's a spiel.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that it's a nod to a really good game, but I don't know that it has the chance of actually winning the Kennerspiel in the end. Cryptid is, I think, the perfect weight for this. If they had done this one in 2018, 2019, and had the German rules at that time, I think it would have stood a really good chance of winning that year because it's an incredible design. But I do think that it does have the potential to alienate certain people, and some people are not going to like this. If you don't like deduction style thinking, this is competitive deduction, so it's not even like a exit or an escape room style game where you can work together and you can all collectively fail. You can feel dumb in Cryptid, I think, and that feels bad. So I don't know that Cryptid is going to win because I think Living Forest, just as you've said, Kevin, has that real niche spot. I think it's the right weight for this nomination. I think it does a lot of things really well. I think the art and the theme and the general fun nature of the game will speak more highly to those audiences. And so for me, I think that the winner of the Kennerspiel nomination is going to be Living Forest.
Obviously, I love Dune Imperium, and it is the game that I want to win and that I think should win, but I'm not going to predict that as the winner because a couple things. It's a little bit heavier, like you guys said. It's an IP game. I don't know if that's a consideration, but I can't think of any IP game that's ever won Spiel or Kennerspiel. I think, honestly, it's going to be Living Forest. That's my prediction.
All three of us. Okay.
So somebody's getting the spiel right, and we may all get the
We're all
Kennerspiel
losing
wrong.
the Kennerspiel.
Yeah.
It's going to be Dune Imperium for sure.
I don't feel like I'll be losing if Dune Imperium is selected because my heart will be happy, but my prediction is Living Forest.
I think any one of the Kennerspiel nominees would be fine taking away the win. Like, I think they're all great games, and I've enjoyed all of them.
So we've gone over our current year, 2022's nominees, and what we think about those games, and some lively discussion and our predictions. Why don't we start talking about our top 5 games that are associated with the Spiel or Kennerspiel at all? So I believe Kevin and Tyson both picked only winners. Right?
I only pick winners.
I only picked winners as well.
So I was looking at their lists and I was like, well, if I only pick winners, and I had already kind of come up with my own list, but looking at their, like, there's just too much crossover. And I didn't want that. And I wanted to mix it up a little bit. So here's what's going to happen. Kevin breaks the top 5 rules just about every time we do a top 5
This is
episode.
a true statement.
Right?
Yeah.
That's not a dig or anything. That's just a fact.
Factual statement.
Yep. So I'm going to mix it up a little. I'm going to do, for me, the top 5 nominees that should have won. And it could be Kennerspiel, it could be Spiel.
And let's face it, it's our show. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So the rest of us chose,
To follow the rules.
which
Right.
our rules that we established were games that have won the Kennerspiel or the Spiel.
We did-
We said it's Spiel affiliated, right?
Yeah, it could be a nominee.
But
I was looking at my
Or
list.
the Kinderspiel, because
Or the Kinderspiel,
that
yeah.
could come up.
There was one on the Kinderspiel that I was going to put on, and I was like, I don't know. So,
Someone may be breaking the rules there.
oh,
So let's get into it so that we can figure out who is a cheater and who is not.
Well,
do
I'm
it.
already admitting to cheating,
That's
but
true.
we're going to find the other cheater. I'm going to go ahead and go. My number 5 nominee that should have been won goes all the way back to Kennerspiel 2013. The winner was Legends of Andor. I've played that game with my son a number of times. He loves it. It's a game. It's a good game. It's got a cool story that it tells, but really the gameplay for me it's not Kennerspiel type level. So the nominee of that year that I pick, or that I would have picked to win, is Bruges. And this is probably the only Stefan Feld game that I've played, which might be disappointing for some of our listeners. But yeah, I think this is the only Stefan Feld I've played. I actually lived in Bruges, or Brugge, for 5 months a long, long time ago, and I love that city. And so I had to get this game. I tracked down a copy. It has, of course, now been rethemed as Hamburg in the Queen Game City Collection. But basically, it's a card game with a board, and your cards do all kinds of different actions. You can play any card to do an action, and some of the actions are like take workers, take money, mitigate a threat, build canal, build a house, hire a character, whatever. But based on the color of the card depicted that you play, it determines which areas you can do your actions and the strength of the chosen action, which I think is really cool. It's a Feld game. It's tight. It's a little unforgiving. I tracked it down finally, and I love this game. I really enjoy it. So that is my number 5 2013 Kennerspiel should have been winner.
All right. My number 5 is the 2003 Spiel winner, and that is Alhambra. So Alhambra was designed by Durkheim. It is a tile laying game. It's a set collection game. It plays over 3 rounds. You're building out your Alhambra. You're not drafting tiles, but you're getting money. You're buying tiles, you're placing them in your Alhambra, you're building walls around it. There's 3 different scoring rounds in the game. And based on how you've collected your sets of tiles in your Alhambra is how you're going to score. There's different values for each color. I think red is the least valuable, or maybe it's blue and it goes down to purple. Those are the most valuable ones to put in your Alhambra. But you get points based on if you have the most of those tiles, and then you get progressively less points for having fewer of those tiles. It's a very simple, very straightforward game, but it's a lot of fun. And what's really fun about it is there are a million expansions. So I have the big box version of the game. They're all little modules that you can just throw in. You don't want to put everything in all at once, but you can mix and match modules into the game, and it just adds a little different flavor to how the game plays. Some of them I always include no matter what. Other ones we kind of mix and match and throw them in there if we feel like it, type of thing. Very simple, kind of an entry-level gateway style game, but it's one that I've been playing for years and just love it.
This sounds right up my alley. Is this one that's available? Can I pick this up?
Yeah, I gave you a copy of this game.
That was
many years ago. Have you played it yet?
No, it's right behind you. But
oh, there you go. Yeah,
I think you gave me that like 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Is it still?
You've just been chomping at the bit to get that one for you.
Hey, I have a very long list of
right. I mean, 5 years.
Shelf of shame.
5 years. I mean, maybe.
Hey, well,
maybe year 6 you'll get to it. Right.
Come over and teach me sometime.
I should.
You should.
It's a good. Have you played this one, Tyson?
I haven't played either of the ones that you've just. I haven't played Bruges. I haven't played Alhambra, and both have been on my list of I'd like to check them out.
Yeah.
I feel like the farther away from a game's release date you get,
right,
the harder they are to get to play sometimes.
Which does a disservice to some of these older games, right?
Absolutely.
Because like cult of a new is a real thing.
Yeah.
Right? You see the new shiny and you want to play the new shiny.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think in our group we do a fairly decent job of not solely gravitating to it. And we do have like a lot of other older games, but the shiny is an appeal.
It is. Well, and there's no getting around that the production values of modern games are so much better than they were. I mean, this one's 2003. It's an old game, right?
Yeah.
19 years ago. It's just, there's no comparison. It doesn't mean it's a bad game.
No.
It's just tougher to get those games to the table
and
to invest the time to learn them, right?
Well, if you want to talk about old games, my number 5 is the Spiel winner of 1995.
Whoa.
Right?
I think we all know what that is.
It should be fairly apparent, but if not, it is Settlers of Catan. And I'll also
Never
point
heard of
out that you probably haven't heard of it because it's now called Catan.
Right.
It's not called Settlers of Catan anymore. This game, the reason it's on my top 5 list is because this is one of those games that was essential to the start of my board gaming experience, right? To my hobby board gaming experience. It is a game that opened my eyes to a lot of possibilities. There's dice rolling. I'm not a huge fan of dice, but this game did something different with dice that I hadn't really seen before. It wasn't just a dice chucker that now I like Risk. I'm counting up the values of the pips and then doing something. It does something with those. If I roll a 7, I get the thief, and the thief gets to go around, and I get to have player interaction with that, and I get to take that and I get to put it on somebody else's.
Of course,
the thief.
Of course, he focuses in on the thief.
It's great.
Right.
And also terrible because when somebody puts it on the right spot, you've got your resource management, and now I can't get the right resources that I wanted out of it.
I'm pretty sure the thief alone is why my wife does not want to ever play this game again.
It's not a perfect design, especially as it's aged, right? Because there are ways to handle that better. It can be very mean, but that was a new experience at that time for me that made me very excited about this game. And I loved that experience and playing it. I loved building my route and figuring out where my road's going to go. And then you throw in some of these expansions that they've come out with. The Knights and Cities was fantastic. And that really opened to my eyes to different possibilities that games could do. And so it had to make my list. So my number 5 is Settlers of Catan.
So I have a lot of fond memories with this game. We lived in Maryland a long time ago, and we had our oldest son was like 6 months at the time, and we had this game and we have been playing quite a bit. But we found a group of other young couples with younger kids. But Logan was a baby at the time, and he would fall asleep. We'd take him in the car seat and to our friend's house, and he would fall asleep, and then we'd just play games all night. And Settlers of Catan or Catan or whatever we're calling it nowadays, we played that for hours, along with Carcassonne and some other card games. But man, those were such good memories and good friends. And for me, this was one of those games that really kind of brought me into modern gaming for sure as well.
Yep, similar experience for me. It was the first game where I started inviting people over to my house to play games, and it's I would say escalated since that time. Right, doing that like nonstop. It seems like, which is awesome. But this is the first one. I will say I got it out a few years ago to play it again. This one has not aged well for me. It was just compared to some of the designs nowadays, it's just not quite there for me anymore. But that doesn't take anything away from the experiences I had before, and getting into the hobby was just it was awesome.
Yeah, we tried to play it on BGA. I think it was on alpha at the time. And we got like 2 turns in. It was just like, nope. Not
Right.
not async because the trading and it's just too painful.
Yep.
I played it a few years ago on the table, and I think with is it the Cities and Nights expansion, I still enjoy that. But yeah, it's lacking a little bit. I'm not one of those people that's going to go spend $400 or $800 or whatever on the new
3D model version of
right.
it. Yeah.
And then the expansion, I think one of the expansions was coming out, and it was even more about the same price. And that's not me. I could fill the whole wall of games for that. So
yeah, this is not a game that's on my top 5 list because I want to play it right now.
No, absolutely.
But it's absolutely like for its time, for what it did. This game is, I think, one of the quintessential Spiel nominees winners. Anything associated with the Spiel.
Good choice.
Yeah. So going back to, well, I mean, before you can settle a land, you have to do a little bit of exploration, right? Make sure there's no monsters, do all kinds of...
for this segue.
A transition.
Oh.
Let's go.
So back to my nominees that should have won. We're going all the way back to last year when Paleo won Kennerspiel, and clearly Lost Ruins of Arnak should have won that. I've never said that I didn't like Lost Ruins of Arnak, for the record.
We've done a lot of recording. I'm going to go back and check just to see.
No, I've always only said that Dune Imperium is a better game. But
okay, yes.
Dune Imperium, you know what? It's going to win this year, so it can't be on this list for me. So
yeah, that's why you voted for it, right?
I voted with my heart.
Right.
So anyway, yeah, Lost Ruins of Arnak, deck builder, came out at the same time as Dune Imperium. We've talked about it at length before. There are some interesting and fun decisions there, whether you want to focus on the track or going after the Guardians and, you know, exploring new lands and new areas and playing a Indiana Jones type style deck builder game. Right?
Yeah.
That's what I always think of as Indiana Jones. I don't know why. Maybe there's some other better.
Well, it's exploration into this strange island.
Archaeological.
Right?
Yeah. So
you're finding stuff. It's like, it's not the best Indiana Jones board game I've played. That goes to the Adventurers
I've seen.
Which has an actual boulder that is chasing after you.
Oh.
That's a great game. I wholeheartly agree with Lost Ruins of Arnak. Of my favorites.
I was really surprised that Lost Ruins of Arnak didn't win it last year.
That was one of the weirdest for me. That's why, like, based off of that, really, it's like, what is the criteria for winning this? Because I felt like that was almost a no-brainer.
Well, and I don't think we really know how they decide. Like, do they vote and each, there are a certain number of people and a certain number of votes? Like, I would really love to see some transparency there and see like how close of
what the rubric is.
Well, the rubric and also, how close or how big of a landslide it was, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't know. But yeah, so that was my number 4, the one that I thought should have won, Lost Ruins of Arnak.
For a cheater pick, I agree. Wholeheartedly support that.
Hey, I'm just trying to follow in your footsteps.
I agree.
Yeah.
My number 4 is a game we've talked about before. It is Seven Wonders. This is the 2011 Kennerspiel winner. And I believe this was the first year they introduced the Kennerspiel in 2011. the connoisseur game of the year. Seven Wonders, I'm not going to go into exactly how it plays, but it is a card drafting game. It's played over 3 ages. What I like most about this game is, and this was the first game that I had experienced this with, regardless of the player count, you could play up to 7. The game lasts the same amount of time if you're playing with 3, 4, all the way up to 7, because everybody is taking their turn at the same time, which completely blew my mind at the time.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And there's not a whole lot of 7-player games out there in the first place, right?
Sidereal Confluence.
Sidereal Confluence. There we go. There we go.
One of Tyson's favorites.
Looks like we're playing.
Hey, I've been listening to you talk about it for the last 8 out of 15 episodes.
Right. There has been a lot of references to this game. We should probably play that one of these days.
I don't know if we have a table big enough.
My expansion's coming soon. Then we'll play.
Yeah,
Nice.
That's what I did say I would play once it got the expansion.
Yeah. I would play as well. I have never said I wouldn't play.
No, we'll have to play it. But you're absolutely right, Kevin, that there are not a lot of games that play at that player count, particularly in 2011, right? Like that was almost unheard of,
right,
of this weight of game to play 7 players, and you could have that kind of strategy experience.
Yeah, and I love the first draft, right, of each round. Getting that hand of cards and going, I've got like 5 or 6 cards in this hand that I want. What am I going to do? And then looking at my neighbor, because I'm going to be passing to them, what do I not want to give them? Because, hate drafting is real in this game, right? And it's an important part of the game because giving them exactly what they need could benefit them more than it's hurting you, not taking the card that's best for you type of thing. And those decisions are they're all over in this game. And it's just a lot of fun. So.
Well, and this game also spawned Seven Wonders Duel, which is one of my favorite 2-player games.
I was just going to say that. It's basically an IP in of itself.
Yeah, well, and now it's Architects, which Seven Wonders Architects spawned out of it, which I think was a consideration for the Spiel nominees this year, but for me, that one was...
That's the weakest of the 3.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
I think I probably like Seven Wonders Duel the best. The fact that they made a card drafting 2-player game that works so well. That's another one that just blew my mind.
Yeah.
Right. That one's amazing.
And I love that you can also play that game in like 10 to 15 minutes.
Right.
Really fast.
So many meaningful choices to make and so many exciting moments at the end of the game when you're flipping over a card that you don't know what it is. And that determines the game.
Yeah. I mean, how many times does that? Yeah. How many times does that happen? We play it on BGA all the time. Well, we used to.
Right.
And there were so many times where it came down to a last card or.
We're both on at the same time.
Yeah.
We're IMing
like,
back and
whatever, Kevin.
or whatever, Tyler, because it's gone both ways. Right. Yeah. That's not the game we're talking about.
No.
We're talking about original Seven Wonders, which gives a lot of the same feeling as Seven Wonders Duel, right? And I just think it's just a wonderfully designed drafting game. Still holds up today. I still think it's a great game.
Did you upgrade to the new version?
No, I did not. I have most of the expansions already for the old version, so there's really no point in doing it.
Yeah.
Don't you have some like special component with yours or something like that? Or is that a different game?
Your tokens are...
Oh, I am. So, right. So the first edition game has wooden money pieces. So like a big gray disc and a big, I think it's like a brown disc or something, signifying value 1 and value 3. After the first printing, they came out with cardboard tokens for the money. I have the original. I just think it's fun having the original. I'm never going to replace those because it's just cool to get that first edition out and play with it. It's kind of nostalgic for me at this point. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good choice. And it's again one of those games that is like fundamental to like early hobby gaming for me. It's one of the early ones I did. This next one that I would like to talk about for my number 4 is similar, and that was the winner of the Spiel in 2004, Ticket to Ride. Now, I feel like I don't even have to talk too much about Ticket to Ride because at this point there's like 800 different versions of Ticket to Ride, and there's all different experiences. You have the young kid version, my
Journey.
first journey, right? You have it's like in and of itself, it's a game that lends itself to learning how to play games for either your kids or for yourself or whatever. And then they have multiple different versions. But it was one of the first games for me to have the route building experience, right? And in like making trains interesting. I was never the kid growing up that was like, I'm interested in trains. I like them. I never wanted to do model trains. Like I know there's a lot of people who love that type of stuff and building trains and tracks and things like that. But that was never interesting to me. But when I started playing Ticket to Ride, I was like, okay, now I can kind of see the appeal to why people like trains. It's fun to travel across the country with this and build my little routes and do different things. And the different versions, like Europe version having the pieces,
stations.
the stations that you can put on it. Like there's a lot of really fun things I think about Ticket to Ride. And I love the card the card mechanic of trying to collect the certain amounts
set
of
collection. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a simple set collection mechanic, but it delivers such an interesting choice for what you're doing. Do I hold on to these cards or do I go for a different color? What am I looking for? How do I get it? And it's so simple that it's accessible to everybody, but it offers a lot of really fun choices that can make some tight experiences. And I love that there are some routes that have multiple tracks that you can go down, but others you may want to put your trains here at first because somebody else may be going the same way. I love the fulfilling the contracts. I love the whole experience that Ticket to Ride offers. It's one that I don't get to play very often because I have a bunch of other games that I would still be happy to play most versions, if not all versions of this. If I were to introduce people to games, this is one of my go-tos.
Yeah, I've loved this game for a long time. It was one of the first games that I got when I was getting into hobby board gaming. What I love most about the game is the tension towards the end. When you don't know if you're going to be able to fulfill your ticket, you don't know where everybody else is going. And just that tension it happens in almost every game. Then when you fulfill your tickets, do I draw more tickets?
Do I risk having to take those negative points if you get one that you can't complete?
Exactly, right? But that decision is awesome as well, because when you pick those 3 cards or however many you're going to pick based on the type of game, the version that you're playing, when you get one that you've already done, you're like, yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah.
When you get 3 tickets that are completely outside of your network, you're like, well, I'm going to pick the lowest value one, and I'm just going to eat this one in the shorts, right? You know, and then the next turn comes around, you draw 3 more tickets, and hopefully that's not the same result type of thing. I think those decisions towards the end of the game is what makes this game most exciting for me. It's fantastic.
All that randomness at the end, right? With those cards.
Well, it's calculated.
That's kind of like when you gain carrots throughout a wonderful game.
Gosh.
And then randomly, one of them is selected as the magic carrot that determines the winner.
I can't believe you're comparing Killer Bunnies to a classic like Ticket to Ride. I mean, this is just unbelievable.
How's the randomness different?
Because
it determines the winner at the end of the game.
So, but it's an elected randomness in that, like, if you've played efficiently throughout the game, you don't need to do it. But if you need to try and beat somebody out, you have the decision of, well, I can take this chance and get what I want out of it potentially. And it's a moment. So, like, I love games with moments. And
we're hanging out tomorrow, right?
We are.
Our families.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to bring Killer Bunnies over.
You're not invited. Hey, we were going to cook dinner and everything, but Killer Bunnies, nope.
So, yeah, I mean, Ticket to Ride's awesome. I've got the Europe one. I've got the Netherlands one. I've got the Amsterdam little short game. I've got New York, the little small short one. It's a great game. It's a classic.
Yeah.
It's been in my collection a long time as well.
So I've been playing Xbox for years and years. I've been playing with my buddy Brad and Chip for a long time. We used to play, and to wind down the session, we'd play Halo, or we'd play, Left 4 Dead or something like that, we would always end the night with Ticket to Ride.
Really?
It was just, it was either that or Carcassonne, but it was usually Ticket to Ride. And we would play 2 or 3 games of that. And it was just such a fun experience to play. So I've played probably hundreds of games on Xbox. There's just a great app on the iPad that I've played hundreds of games. Quick question for you guys. Favorite version of Ticket to Ride if you have one? What do you think, Tyson?
Ethnos.
Oh, huh?
What?
Wait a minute. Do you understand the question?
I feel like Ethnos is Ticket to Ride, but Ticket to Ride Fantasy. That's why I say that.
Oh.
But like it takes the Ticket to Ride mechanic and
Turns it to 11.
Like I really like it. But if I'm not cheating,
If you're actually answering the question.
if I'm actually answering the question, I haven't played too many different versions. Honestly, I've played Ticket to Ride Europe. And I think there's one other that I can't remember off the top of my head. But Europe was a lot of fun when I played that with the stations and doing a lot of different things. So I like that one a lot.
Interesting answer, because it is the nicest version of Ticket to Ride. But yeah, I think mine is Nordic countries for a few reasons. Spent some time in Sweden. It's got places on the map that I've actually been to. So it's awesome that way. But it's a 3-player map. It's really congested and tight. You can get in each other's way. There's kind of bottleneck areas that you want to go to first. It's got ferries. It's got tunnels through the mountains. It's got this huge route on the top that you can get, I think 27 points or something like that if you go that way. It just switches it up a little bit, and it's probably my favorite version. I don't know if you've got one, Tyler.
I do. So mine is Nederland.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I played it, but I believe when you build on some single routes, there's a toll that you pay to the bank. But then if you build on that same route on the second, then you pay it to the player who's already been there or who already built the first route, which I thought that was cool. It's also fun to play with my family and try and see all the cities that I'm familiar with, but also hear them try to pronounce names like Sertogenbos and Skrafenhage. And
yeah, I do that same thing with the Swedish cities. Skellefteå, Stockholm, Köpenhamn. They're like, huh? That's not what it is. Like, yeah, that's how you pronounce it.
I'm going to build that route to from Groningen to Leeuwarden. What? Where is that? Yeah. So.
I'm used to like Seattle, Los Angeles,
right?
So
Nashville.
I don't actually have the US one. I only have the Europe one. So back to my list of nominees that should have won. You know what? I'm breaking all the rules.
I just really like that we're doing 2 top 5 lists.
Hey, you know what?
Hey, more bang for your buck, listeners.
I made my list and it was boring. It wasn't very exciting. There was too much crossover. I don't know.
We're not about boring here on the longest turn. So
You know what? I said I'm going to do what I want to do. So my number 3 nominee that should have won on my top 5 list goes to 2017 Kennerspiel. Exit das Spiel won. And I have fun playing all the exit games that I've played. I have a few unplayed ones that I got on sale at various times over the years. That it's a fun game. They're fun games. The puzzles you have to try and figure out at some point as time goes on. It's like, okay, can we just be done with this?
Just stop buying them.
Well, I have. I haven't bought one I haven't bought one for like 3 years, and I think I've got 2 or 3 in shrink wrap still. Those are more games that we'll play if, like certain families visiting, right? So anyway, in 2017, which I don't know how this is a Kenner game, but Exit das Spiel won the Kennerspiel. A nominee is a game that paved the way for Ark Nova, and that is Terraforming Mars. You guys may have heard of it.
Once or twice.
Little known game, but yeah.
Yeah. So that game, I don't love it as much as other people do. I think Dan in our gaming group, that's one of his favorite games. I really enjoy it. I have the nice big box version from the Kickstarter a couple years ago.
Is that out of shrink yet?
It is.
You actually opened it?
Oh, yeah. And I sorted it. And
okay, cool.
They're all sleeved. They're sleeved, Tyson.
We all own a copy of this game.
Yeah.
Mine is not sleeved. It
I mean,
will not be, but
half the reason I wanted the big box is because the original box was like paper thin, right?
It literally was like 4 sheets of paper glued together.
Yeah, it was terrible.
It was.
It's a great game. You're, drawing cards and playing cards and trying to match symbols and create synergies.
It is a good game.
While you're terraforming Mars and increasing the oxygen level and adding water and all these wonderful things. I wonder if Elon Musk has played Terraforming Mars yet.
I don't know, but I know that Stephen Bonacore actually took it to like a space convention.
Oh, he did?
And took it to a bunch of I can't remember, but people from NASA were there. They played it, and it actually got a lot of publicity as a very accurate and scientifically correct game. And
cool.
There is I think, and I could be making this up, but on his podcast with Ignacy Cevicek, the Board Games Insider, I think I recall him saying that he did send it to Elon Musk.
Did he? That's awesome.
That's cool. Yeah.
Anyway, I think that should have won. Clearly, as far as popularity goes, Terraforming Mars has screamed to the top. It's definitely more popular than Exit. So I think it should have won. It also paved the way for the new sensational Ark Nova.
A lot of similarities between the two.
Yep.
For sure.
Still need to play it.
So that's my number 3, Terraforming Mars, 2017 Kennerspiel should have won.
My number 3 is a game we've talked about on this podcast. It is the 2018 winner, and that is Azul. So Azul is a tile drafting game where you're trying to place those tiles that you draft in certain patterns on your player board to score points. You get more points based on how well you place those tiles together on that board. Also, if you get a vertical row or a horizontal row, you're going to get bonus points. If you get all of the tiles of one color on your board, you're going to get bonus points. What I like about this game is the interaction that you have with the other players. You're constantly, if you're playing the game well, looking at what everybody else is collecting, trying not to set them up to get exactly what they need. Little bit of hate drafting. Apparently there's a theme in my my top 5 list because similar to Seven Wonders, Azul has a little bit.
I would have expected that from Tyson's list.
Right. I don't know. I'm second guessing my list here apparently, but you're looking at everybody else and making sure you're not setting them up, and you're drafting the tiles that are most beneficial to you, obviously, as well. It's very simple, easy to teach, but it's got some fun decisions to make and a lot of good strategy. So that is Azul, another one that's kind of shot up in the ranks.
Yeah,
as well.
This one is great. I love this one, and I think that with as many plays as we've all had with it, we continue to play it. It doesn't get old. It's exciting and fun and quick every time. I like the very apparent hate drafting that can happen, because it's not always hate drafting. It can be it's you're trying to avoid hurting yourself in later rounds too, which I really like. In this last game that we were playing, I gave Tyler something that I was really hoping he wasn't going to want, but it was 5 blues because nobody else could take it but Tyler. And I was like, but I really need this other tile.
Right.
And I ended up making it so that Tyler could have 5 blues. And I was like, maybe he really won't want 5 blues.
Who doesn't want 5 blues if you have space for them? Right.
He was the only one who could fit it. And it was very apparent that he would take it, but it wasn't my best choice. So this game, it's a lot of fun.
When I think of gateway games, this game is the number 1 game that comes to my mind first. Is perfect for introducing people to the hobby. I think it's abstract, simple rules, easy scoring, plays fairly quick,
and great production value for
the tiles are beautiful, and the tactileness of them. I don't know if that's a word, but This is a great gateway game.
We're going to call that a word. Tactileness. For sure.
And I'm excited for the next 30 years of Azul games that we're going to be continually getting to explore because it doesn't seem like they're stopping anytime soon.
We're at 4 now. And it's not
4 plus lots of expansions.
Exactly. It's funny. I look at the abstract rating on BGG. This one's rated number 2 for abstract games. You guys,
wait, what's number 1?
You guys have any idea what number 1 is?
Cascadia.
Cascadia. Did you just look it up?
No, I did not.
Oh, nice. So the two games that we've talked about
I don't know that
in this
like
episode are the top 2 abstract games, according to BGG.
I don't feel like Cascadia is as abstract.
And I don't think it's like if you're choosing an abstract category, I feel like Azul totally.
Yeah, like
I don't know.
I'm not
saying it doesn't
Azul
deserve high praise.
I think
feel
Azul should be number 1,
Yeah,
personally,
agreed.
right? But both are obviously great games. But so that's my number 3, Azul.
Azul.
So Azul is a very tactile game. The game I wanted to talk about is a very tactile game. In fact, it's very dexterous. It is the 2017 Kennerspiel. Whoops, did I just...
Whoa.
Oh my gosh.
It is the
I'm the only one following the rules in this episode. What is
opposite
happening?
It's an anomaly, yeah.
It is. It's an anomaly.
2017 Kennerspiel winner was Ice Cool. Ice Cool is basically tag in a box. Your penguins going around a school via flicking and trying to catch fish, but one player is trying to tag you and you're trying not to get tagged and get as many fish as you can to win. This game has so much appeal to me. Like it's the Kennerspiel winner, but I think that it appeals to more than just kids. My kids love this game. Like my I've been playing this with my kids since they were 2 years old. They love it. I have been playing this with adults. We did a game night one night with our group and played Ice Cool and Ice Cool 2 with an 8-player game almost. And it was just this kind of tournament of like, hey, who can do it the best? And it was really fun because there is technique in this dexterity game in how you flick the pieces, and there's actual skill. So if you're proficient at it, you can do some really cool things with this. So my number 3 is Ice Cool for so many reasons.
Yeah, my favorite move to pull off when you're the hunter penguin or whatever it's called is after everybody's gone, they've moved from their initial spot. Maybe they haven't, but you flick over the 2 walls, through the doorway, roll through the next doorway, and potentially hit someone in the next room. And when you pull off a move like that, get tagging someone on your first turn as the hunter, that's awesome.
Yeah. 90% of the time you flip it off the board. But when you when you pull it off, it is pretty cool. Similar to what you said, like I've had times when I'm like, okay, I'm going to hit it. Because if you hit it on the side, it's going to curve one way. Right?
Yep.
You hit it on the other side, it's going to curve the other way. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go through this door and then this door, and I call my shot, right?
Yeah.
Hit it. Perfect shot. It goes exactly where you want. You're like, yeah, that's amazing.
It creates, and whether you're trying to or not, it creates. There are amazing shots that get pulled off that are just super exciting.
And when they don't get pulled off, it's equally fun, right? Because it's like, you just went all the way off the table. You're a complete loser.
You
at
suck.
this game.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, and what I like too is my 8-year-old, she's 9. She had a birthday yesterday. She's 9 now.
Happy birthday.
Oh. Yeah. She can play just as well as anybody else can play, right? She may not try and curve it around corners and stuff, but she can flick penguins and have a good time.
We've sat around stood around a table for hours as a family playing this game, just one time after another. And, combined with Ice Cool 2, when you really put those together, we also add in the Emerald Fish, which is a small expansion. And basically, whoever gets it, anytime someone touches them, they take the emerald fish. So sometimes the hunter has it. Sometimes is it called the hunter?
I don't even
Tagger,
know.
Whatever.
Catcher. It's catcher.
The catcher. That's what it is. So even if the catcher has it, if they touch you or you touch them, then you get the emerald fish back, and it's worth points at the end of the round. So it adds a little dynamic where, hey, it's not that bad of a deal if the catcher catches me, or if the catcher's already caught me and he's got the emerald fish, now I'm going after him to try and get it back.
Cool.
So
that was my number 3, Ice Cool.
all right, back to my illegitimate top 5 list.
Well, now you're in good company because Tyson
featured,
just cheated as well. So
That's
it's
true.
Fine. It's fine.
So
mine was not nearly as egregious of a cheat. Let's put it that way.
This is true.
So my number 2 is a nominee that should have won, goes all the way back to 2016. Now, I haven't heard of this game, Isle of Skye. I guess it's basically Scottish Carcassonne, but clearly Pandemic Legacy Season 1 should have won the Kennerspiel in 2016. I cannot think of a better experience that we've had playing games as a family. I mean, Cthulhu, Death May Die, some of those games have come close, if not maybe better individually. But as a whole, Pandemic Season 1, I mean, just incredible legacy game, legacy experience. That was the first time I experienced a legacy game. Absolutely amazing. My wife and son were, just totally into this. We would play day after day after day until we finally finished it. Legacy Season 1 was awesome. I loved the cooperative nature, the tearing up of cards, the putting stickers on cards and on the map, and creating this,
naming the diseases,
right. And
yeah.
I'm pretty sure we named one after Tom Wilson, which is a player for the Capitals. We're Penguins fans. Can't stand Tom Wilson.
We named one the Biebs.
The Biebs.
Sorry for people. If there are any Justin Bieber fans, sorry, but
is there a name for that, for a Bieber fan?
Beliebers.
Beliebers, yeah.
Beliebers,
yeah.
I think.
So, yeah, back to Pandemic Legacy Season 1. That should have won. I'm not sure about this Scottish game.
I will tell you that I think Pandemic 1, out of all the pandemics, and it's no secret here that Pandemic's not my favorite game, but Pandemic Season 1 is a masterpiece experience.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's no doubt about that. Like, even though I don't love Pandemic, that is a masterpiece experience. And even Pandemic, like, similar to what Kevin was saying about Cryptid, I can appreciate how well designed of a game this is, how well designed Pandemic Season 1 particularly is. Like, it is a masterpiece. Now, in terms of Kennerspiel and Spiel des Jahres, I can see why it wouldn't have won that, especially considering what the weights are. I think that Isle of Skye is probably more appropriate for the Spiel win than the Kennerspiel, and I think that Pandemic Season 1 qualifies perfectly for Kennerspiel, but I don't think that the trends of Kennerspiel and Spiel reflect Pandemic being the right proper weight for it to get that win.
I mean, for me, if there's any Scottish game that should win Kennerspiel, it should have been Clans of Caledonia.
The Clans of Caledonia, the reason it was published is because it won an award. It won the Hippo Dice Award. And
then it should have gone on to win Kennerspiel.
It should have got the Kenner, yeah.
It wasn't even a nominee, but I think it might also have a little bit higher weight than some of the other Kennerspiel nominees as well. So, but that was my number 2, Pandemic Legacy Season 1.
My number 2 is a little known game called Ticket to Ride that we've already talked about. So enough said on that one.
All aboard. Let's move on to my number 2, which is Azul, which again,
now we're just flying down the track.
So Tyler, it looks like it's right back to you.
My number 1. Okay. So this is easily a top 10 game for me. We're going back to Kenner 2015.
I thought you were going to put Dune Imperium right
I just
there.
realized all 5 of them were Kenners. This game should have beat out Broom Service, which Broom Service is a great game. It expands a little on one of our favorites, or one of that we've played a lot in this group, Witch's Brew, which
not as good as Witch's Brew, in my opinion, but
it it adds the board. There's some different mechanics added in. The card system is based off of Witch's Brew. I've enjoyed Broom Service. It's a fun game. For me, this isn't even a competition. This is one of those ones where it's like, are you kidding me? How the heck did that game win over this game? The nominee that should have won in 2015 was Orleans. I love that game. I love the bag building aspect. I love the randomness of drawing the workers out of the bag and then trying to come up with the best plan or best configuration that allows you to benefit from how well you drew, or to try and figure out how can I do something that will salvage this round based on how bad of a draw you have. I love all of how the scoring works out. There's also the board aspect of expanding on the board and building in the different cities and gaining points that way, which is a multiplier at the end of the game. I love Orleans. I have yet to find a bag builder that I enjoy as much. Quacks is a little bit lighter. I do like that game. I really enjoy it, but I would love to see more bag building games. Orleans, by far, it's in my top 10. This should have won in 2015. I love this game. What do you guys think about that?
I like it. I like it a lot. It makes the experience even better if you have the upgraded bits.
Yeah.
Like our buddy Dan has those.
Oh, they're amazing.
We played those at Cabin Con with those at Cabin Con, and it was awesome. I loved it. Bag building mechanic, like you mentioned, is great. I like this one. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Where I could see why Pandemic Season 1 didn't get the win. I don't have the experience with this one. I think that this game, I've played this game with people who have only played Catan, right? And that was the only other game they played. And I introduced this game to them as their kind of next level up. And they caught on really quickly. They understood it and they enjoyed it. They immediately went out and bought it. This game, yeah. Hands down.
Yeah, I still remember I played this for the first time at Kevin's house, and I immediately turned around and bought it and bought all the expansions for it. And, it was just one of those games where playing it for the first time was magical, I felt like. And I just this game is awesome. I love it. It's one of the great games in my collection, I feel like. So,
yeah, totally agree.
Another fantastic game is my number one. Listeners are probably sick of hearing me talk about this game, but I'm going to talk about it some more. And that is Dominion. This is the Spiel 2009 winner. Not much else I can say other than what I've already said in previous podcasts. What I will add is at Origins, I did pick up more Dominion. There are upgrade packs for the first edition. Second edition is starting to come out for the base game, for Intrigue, for Seaside, for Prosperity. All these initial releases, they're doing second editions. So the second editions will take out some cards. I don't know why they're doing it. I think they're doing this for maybe some balancing issues that they've seen over time. I don't know. Or they just want to freshen up the game a little bit. But there are cards that weren't available initially that are now available. Instead of having to buy the whole second edition, you can just get the cards that are added. So I bought, the base game, Intrigue, and Seaside, I have those. It equals almost 25 cards. I think it's 23 new Kingdom cards that can be played. And that's like a big box expansion in and of itself. So super excited to get that played. It adds to the ever expanding variability of this game. You could play for the rest of your life, many lifetimes over, and never see the same card combinations. And it drastically changes how the game feels and plays with each different card combination. I think it's very well deserved as a Spiel winner. It kind of spawned the deck building genre. And as we've talked about, that's one of our favorite mechanisms here at Longest Turn is deck building. And this is the kind of father of all of those. So
which is
Dominion is great.
absolutely, I totally agree. Completely deserved. There are very few games that are genre defining that continue to be good years and years later. We're over a decade past when this one came out, and it's still being played. Expansions are still being made for this game. Content is still being produced. That I think shows how well this one deserved.
2009 was an incredible year for games that created a full line of posterity of games, right? I mean, you have Dominion and you have Pandemic. And
Race for the Galaxy came out at the same time as well.
And it didn't get a nominee.
It did not. Should have.
But Dominion and Pandemic, like, those are two blockbuster games that have a whole posterity of games after them. It came out in 2009. Really, Pandemic should have won, I think. No?
Wait, what? No. Over Dominion?
No. I'm asking.
No. I think
what if you took into consideration what came after? Whereas Dominion spawned all types of expansions and then the whole deck building genre.
Dominion by far. That's a tough one, right?
Tough one.
Because Pandemic was the first widely accepted cooperative game.
Exactly.
Right? Which spawned countless other cooperative games. Dominion spawned the whole deck building genre, which you look at all the games that have an aspect of deck building. We talked about Living Forest. That has deck building. There are so many games that have that mechanic.
I feel like half the games we talk about are deck builders, or half the games that we play are deck builders.
We've referenced, Cthulhu Death May Die, which is a cooperative game in this episode. And there's countless other cooperative games that are just amazing experiences. If that wasn't, I don't think we would be where we're at now if Pandemic didn't exist in 2009 in the cooperative space. Right?
No, absolutely.
So that's a tough question. I think I'd give the nod to Dominion, but I don't know.
At first my gut was, let's say Dominion, because I like Dominion better than I like Pandemic. But again, I have to go back to the fact that Pandemic is a masterpiece of a design. Like, I don't personally enjoy it, but it is a masterpiece of a design, and the degree of threat that is in that game, the tension that it creates, it's a tough one. I don't know that they both are phenomenal games, obviously, and well deserving of their continued printings, but I don't know.
I feel like you put I feel like if you put either one of those up against most games in most years, especially that far back, either one of them would win their year.
Absolutely.
And it's an interesting, there's a whole long discussion you could have there about which one was more influential. You can't really go wrong with either one of them.
You can't. There's deck building cooperative games. Whoa,
Aeon's End.
Aeon's End, right? There's both of them right there.
Thunderstone Quest cooperative?
I haven't played Quest. I know just standard Thunderstone Events is not cooperative. So I don't think Quest is, but don't know for sure. So Dominion, I think we all realize the impact that it has made as the first deck builder. And Tyler, it looks like you have something to say.
I do want to say something. When you were talking about Dominion, so I've had Dominion in my collection for a long time. I have nowhere near the amount of plays that you have of it. And when you were talking about it, I was like, that's just like Race for the Galaxy. I never want to play that game with Kevin. Do you want to play, I don't know, Acquire with me?
I have no desire to play Acquire with you.
I really like Race for the Galaxy, and I think I might be able to hold my own a little bit more in Dominion, but
I think
Race for the Galaxy, man, I don't want to.
You're done with that?
Yeah.
You're retiring after 2 games?
Yeah.
Well, like we talked about, that one is pretty unforgiving for new players. I think Dominion is a lot more accessible for new players.
Similarly, I never want to play, what's the game that Tyson always talks about? The card game that you wore out, the hidden roll game?
Oh, the Resistance.
Resistance. I don't want to play that with Tyson.
Come on. That's such a good game.
Plus, your cards are worn out, and I could tell
Yeah.
which card is which.
No, because I've got
you didn't
ways around.
sleep.
Wait a minute. If you had sleeved those,
We've already
would
had
still
this
be able to
conversation.
play.
Literally, I brought that up last episode.
oh, okay.
Plus, I think, is it coup?
Cool.
I think that's better than the Resistance. Poking the bear.
Poking the bear. Yeah.
Yep.
No,
Poking the
thank you.
All right, Tyson, tell us what your number one is. Oh, you want to do your own transition again?
Oh my gosh.
No, I'll take your transition this time.
Oh, wait, hold on. Let me come up with one real quick.
Do you have to write it down?
Whatever, Kevin.
I mean,
I don't have a transition from Dominion to Isle of Skye. Other than
I'm gonna. My
Isle of
transition-
Skye is a cornucopia of sorts.
That's no.
And
we're not going with it.
there's an expansion in Dominion called Cornucopia. I see what you did there.
That's not.
You don't have to be an alchemist to figure out that Isle of Skye should be number one on Tyson's list.
That's an intriguing comment.
Somebody throw me in a moat because I can't handle this anymore.
Oh, hell!
All right.
I got nothing else to say.
So I don't have anything nearly as genre defining as Dominion or Ticket to Ride, but I'm going to hail back to a comment that Tyler made previously. And the shade that was being thrown, because my number one is going to be the 2016 rightful Kenner winner.
Wow.
Isle of Skye. Isle of Skye. Again, I don't think it's a better game than Pandemic Legacy, but I do think it's a
Scottish Carcassonne.
It's way more than Carcassonne. It's what Carcassonne should be. This is why I like Isle of Skye. So Isle of Skye is a tile placement game similar to Carcassonne, in where you're building cities and routes and scoring points for various different things. However, the value in Isle of Skye is that it adds a fantastic bidding auction mechanic that I haven't seen done better in other games than Isle of Skye, because it allows everybody to get something out of it no matter what, which I find very useful, because you can have games with bidding mechanics that don't often, or rather that often leave a player or two in the dust with getting almost nothing that they want. Isle of Skye gives you so many choices, because at every round, you put 3 tiles in front of you. Those 3 tiles don't necessarily belong to you. What you get to do is you get to set the price of those 3 tiles, and you get to choose one of those tiles to get rid of, which right there makes a fascinating decision, because I get to see what tiles I have in front of me. Okay, I want this one. I want this one. Kevin really, really, really wants this tile because it's going to score him a bunch of points. I'm going to axe that tile so that Kevin has no chance of getting that one. And then everybody else gets to do that same choice.
Why do you gotta be so mean all the time?
It's not mean, it's strategic. And I love that about it, is that it makes so many decisions, and you can do the exact same thing for me. So I'm saving up my money thinking, oh, Kevin's going to have that. Please don't discard that one. But if he does, I've got my second and third choice. Tyler's got one I really want. And then I get to set the price. And if I can outbid you and set a price that you're not going to pay, it's this push-pull mechanic of how high can I set the tile that if I don't want it, somebody will pay for it. At the same time, if I want it, how high can I set it without spending more than I want to for it, hoping somebody else won't bid on it. So that bid mechanic is really exciting to me. And then you tack on the whole end game scoring in this, or the round to round scoring in it. Every round has a different scoring thing, and there are so many variable scoring tiles in the game that you're never going to get the same game twice. I love this game. I think it's a phenomenal game. It is, I will present this to anybody over Carcassonne. I think it's easy enough that everybody can play. It's kind of one of my go-to gateway games. If I can introduce this to people, I love to. Isle of Skye. I love it.
To be fair, I've never played it. So when I said Scottish Carcassonne, I was just making that up.
Interesting that Carcassonne is also a Spiel winner. Did not make any of our lists, right? Did you guys even consider that one?
I did.
It was.
I considered it.
It was in my top 10, but it didn't make it. Like Isle of Skye completely replaces it for me. So like,
Right.
I'm not gonna do Carcassonne if Isle of Skye is on the list.
I've never played Isle of Skye, but I did think about Carcassonne. That's another one that was kind of obviously wildly popular.
I mean,
How many expansions does it have at this point? About eight
I don't know.
830,000 something.
Yeah. How many
there,
reprintings does it have with slightly different art?
Right,
Yeah.
which is kind of slightly infuriating.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, you take Carcassonne, Settlers of Catan,
Ticket to Ride.
Ticket to Ride. I mean, right there you have.
Yeah.
That's a good portion of gamers. That's their
Staples
origin
starter,
story,
yeah.
right?
Pillars of gateway games, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to play Isle of Skye sometime.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
I would play that one.
I think you guys would enjoy it. I think it offers some stuff that isn't in other games, but I think that I've hyped it, and I'm worried that that's going to impact your decisions.
We'll get to it right after Adrenaline and
Right.
Sidereal Confluence.
Absolutely.
I think the one time you brought this to a game night, I ended up teaching a different game, and I don't know who you played with, but it was one of the bigger game nights where we had 3 or 4 games going on at a time, but that's the only time I've seen it actually on the table. So
Yeah, I haven't brought it since then, but it's definitely one that.
Did you bring it to the first Cabin Con? I want to say
I
you
brought
did.
it and it didn't get played.
Like when everybody brought like 20 games
100,
apiece.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right.
we need to rent a place for our next Cabin Con.
Yeah.
We should get on that.
We should get on that.
We should also go to Gen Con by last
I saw
minute
your
tickets.
message about Gen Con.
Did that make you angry?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to go to Gen Con before Origins this year.
Yeah.
Why didn't we go to Origins?
I had something scheduled that fell through and
Right. You did. Yeah.
I'm not very happy about that, but I'm
Right.
thinking I'm not going to actually go.
Oh, okay.
It wouldn't feel right. Much like it wouldn't feel right winning a game of Moonrakers through Kingmaking.
It would not. More to come on that in a future episode, though.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Possible. Listen.
Well, that was
Tune in to
Isle of
find out.
Skye.
Oh, are you going to wrap that up now?
So that is my number 1, Isle of Skye. And that concludes our,
Broadcast day.
well, I was going to say top 5 list.
Both. Concludes both.
It does.
All right. Well, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Longest Turn Board Gaming Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you want more Longest Turn in your life, please check us out on Instagram. Also, be sure to check us out on Board Game Geek, where you can join our guild, Guild 3947, and check out our blog, where we post all our show notes and occasionally post more detailed reviews. If that's not enough for you, we have a Discord server. If you want to play a game with us on Board Game Arena, join our Board Game Arena group, The Longest Turn. Until next time, thanks for listening.
Goodbye.
See you later.
Tot ziens.
Recess.
Spiel and Kennerspiel.
Spiel and Kennerspiel.
Spiel and Kennerspiel.
Spiel. Bird.
Birds. I turned the sprinklers off. Like I literally went up there and turned it off.
I like that.
Or make a Feldian comment or something.
Point salad, huh?
Welcome. No, that's too loud. That was too forceful.
Welcome.
Welcome to the danger zone. Should we just record a different night?
I don't know.
So the players. Brr. All right, so that about wraps up our.
He just asked you a question and you're like, well, that just wraps up.
All right, Tyson's number 3 is. Oh, sorry. Did you have a real transition there?
Not anymore, I don't.
Well,
Do you have a real transition?
okay, I'll cut that out. What's your transition, Tyson?
Make it good.
That was what I was introduced. That's what I was introduced.
Why are you putting two D's in there?
I don't know. I'm so friggin' tired.
Introduced.